Hey guys, KKG here. In this video, I'm going to try and show you how to set your NOX settings to make your games run faster. Keep in mind that since each computer has its own specs, your settings may be slightly different than this one. I will be recording this video on an old computer with an i5-4690 with 3.5 GHz processor, GTX 1050 Zotac GPU, and 16GB DDR3 16MHz RAM that supports virtualization technology. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's your fault and you should feel bad about it. But don't worry, we will find a way to get your settings right even without nerd-level technical knowledge. Virtualization Technology, VT for short, improves the performance of your computer and allows NOX to run more smoothly and faster. So let's make sure that VT is enabled on your computer so you could customize the CPU and RAM allocation. To check if your computer supports VT, you could refer to this useful tool called LeoMoon CPU-V. It detects if your CPU supports hardware virtualization, and also detects if hardware virtualization is enabled in BIOS. The BIOS is your motherboard's firmware. We could talk about it, but that will take 4 years. Anyway, if your LeoMoon check result shows a green check under VT-X supported, it means your computer supports virtualization. If it's a red cross, then your computer does not support VT. But you could still install NOX as long as you meet the installation requirements. Your system should have at least 2 GB of RAM, 2.2 GHz processor, and 1 GB graphics card. If your check result shows a green check under the VT-X enabled, then it means VT is already enabled in your BIOS. If it's a red cross and you are using Windows 8 or Windows 10, simply disable Hyper-V by opening your control panel and look for it under the Windows features. More about enabling VT in the description. Also make sure that your graphic card drivers are on the most stable version. Most of the time, that's the latest update. Use your own discretion when updating drivers. Let me show you how NOX runs on a typical setting. As you can see, this game is currently laggy. The frames per second is low, even with the game settings is not on full. Let's see what happens when we enable all of the game's graphic settings. It's even slower, like we are in slow motion. It feels like it will take 1,000 years just to get from one map to the next. It is very annoying to play. In some systems, even if we disable most of the game's graphic settings, the improvement is minimal, almost to the point that you just want to quit the game. We can improve the situation by changing the settings in NOX. Open your NOX settings by clicking the gear icon on top of your NOX window. This will open your NOX system settings. Read this carefully so you can choose the best setting you like. For now, go to the Advanced Setting tab. If you are only running one instance of NOX, feel free to slide your frame settings to 60 frames per second. On the performance settings, you can see that my NOX is currently using 2 cores of my processor and 2048 MB of memory. That's 2 GB. In this computer, this setting is enough to run Ragnarok Mobile on NOX in the background. But if we want the game to show us smoother graphics, we'll need to tell NOX to use more of our computer. You could set the performance settings to high, but if you know more about your computer, like how many cores your processor has, feel free to choose custom. Since this computer has 4 cores in its processor, let's set it to 3 cores and give it 5 GB of RAM. Each gigabyte has 1024 megabytes, so that's about 5120 megabytes. Take note that the number of allocated CPU cores should not exceed the number of physical cores you have. Also make sure to leave Windows enough RAM to work. In this case, 64-bit Windows 10 needs at least 2 GB of RAM to function properly. Let's save these settings and restart NOX. Now, NOX will use 3 cores and 5 GB of RAM. You should also consider moving your NOX installation directory to your SSD drive if you have any. In worst case scenarios, you could have your computer make NOX use your GPU instead of your processor. More about that in the description. Let's put a before and after comparison so you can see for yourself. If you know more about tweaking your NOX to improve the settings, feel free to comment and let me know. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.